Let's build a table. Fundamental unit of data in most databases, in relational databases, is a table. And the way that I think about a table is it is kind of like an Excel spreadsheet with a bunch of other attributes that make it fast. So let's start out with a table. This is Excel. You could do this easily in most any spreadsheet, but with real name, age, and state. So it's got 3 columns. You'll notice that these columns have a name. That's part of what goes into a table. And we have 3 lines of data or 2 lines of data with 2 people, 2 ages, and what state they're in. Now, that's a pretty simple table, but let's see how we build it both in at the command line, interactively in Postgres, and also using the tool. So let's go over to our interactive tool. And there's an explanation in here of the information. You don't have to watch the video if you don't want to, but most of these have a text explanation. There's a video, that's what you're seeing right now, of how to go about doing this. And most of these are pretty easy. So in this case, it has a drop table if exists, and then a create table. And you could cut and paste this. I recommend you actually just type it in because you'll learn a lot more. And these are quick little exercises. If it's very long what there is to type in, there'll be a drop down over here and I'll ask you to actually run a file, which will populate this box down here with the file so that you can just click run to run it. But we're talking about realistically 6 lines of text to type in. So let's try it right here. Now, SQL is a case-insensitive language, so I don't have to put it in uppercase. And the table names, if they are just listed like this, then they are actually stored in a lowercase fashion. Okay, I could list the table name uppercase, it would convert it to lowercase here. Now, when we do this in the database, we actually have a type. We say that this is a text column, that age is an integer, and we are going to go over different types. But let's start with the basic stuff. A table starts out with create table. It has a name. That's what we're calling this. It's a name list. You can use A through Z digits and underscores in the name as long as you start it with a letter. Then you put an open paren to start the table, a close paren to end the table, a semicolon to say that's the end of the statement right there. And you list out a list of names, real name, text, and you use comma as a separator. There are more options that we'll get into on each of the types and other things we can do with this. Our types here is text, which is a 0 to n length text. I think Postgres limits you to something like 130,000 characters in text. Age, an integer, which is a 64-bit integer these days in Postgres, at least on a Macintosh. I don't know what it is, whether it's a 32 or 64-bit integer if you're running on 32-bit Windows. I think there are still people doing that. And state, which is a varying length character of 2 long. So I'm limiting it to 2 characters. So those are the pieces in my table, and if I go down to the bottom of this, we'll see that there is a Run It Now button, and I get some output. The output shows up in this output box, and it says that when I ran this, I had success for a status, and that I have a set of messages, that the drop table, if exists, it ran, it wasn't an error, and we have a second one that is ran correctly, and it's create table, and it lists the statement, and there was no error on that. So that was successful. Now, to actually get a grade for this, you need to click the grade button, and it says that, yes, I got 10 points out of 10 points possible. That's the message down here. And you should look at that message. There is going to be, if I scroll down far enough, a pop-up box saying that, yes, this one was graded, and the previous page to this would actually show that I have completed this exercise. So this is about the length of most of these interactive exercises. A few of them are a little bit longer, maybe twice this length, but they're short. Again, if they're very long, I'm going to ask you to run a file, and the potential files for running that exercise will be listed over here under a drop-down. And when they won't just be file 1, file 2, file 3, there'll actually be some names that I'm actually asking you to run. That was for a demo for this particular video. So that's kind of the complexity of running these interactive things. There are a bunch of these interactive things to actually sit here and run. So you can watch the video. The video covers the same material as the text. And I'm going to do the exact same thing over here in Postgres. I've already done it once, but let's get into Postgres interactively at the command line, and let's run it. I don't know if there's a name list there. It dropped the table. This is the same text as the other one that I typed in. But you'll notice that when you run it interactively, you're at this # prompt. If you see a little open paren, that means you're inside a parenthesized list. When you did the drop table, it prints out that it dropped the table. When you do the create table, it says create table. Now, when you get done installing Postgres, and you don't have to do this right away, your first few things that you're doing are all interactively in the tool over here. But when you get done installing Postgres, the piece that you want to do is you want to do some of these to make certain that your Postgres install actually worked, that you can actually run PSQL. Because as we get to more complicated stuff, we're going to want to either do it this way, or we have a graphical tool, pgadmin, that we'll be able to go in and use, and it also has the ability for us to enter stuff interactively and run it, and other ways of creating things and running them. Now, all of these things are useful. Do I use pgadmin? Absolutely. It's a great tool and very useful for lots of stuff. Can I use it all the time? No. The reality is that I have servers in Tokyo and Texas, and the only way I have of maintaining the database on those servers is connecting through SSH on a text terminal and running it as text. Is there utility to knowing how to run stuff as text? Absolutely, because when I create a data model with a bunch of tables, these are text files. They're .sql, but basically they're text files. And I'm going to run those interactively, and I need to know how they work. And that's how I install and set up and do all sorts of migrations and things in databases. So the interactive is important. The pgadmin, I'm not showing that here because it would be just the same thing as kind of like the little web page that's interactive. It's important to know each one of these things and how they work as a part of this database. And being able to script it and run a file that you're going to run over and over again is super important, because suppose what you're doing is you're setting up 100 copies of a database like this, which is not that uncommon in this world. And you want to be able to maintain them all together. You don't want to be using a GUI tool where you've got to go in and run each piece interactively and click on it. You want to be able to build a script. So these things are all important together, and we're going to work with all of them. But your first lessons are being able to run it in the interactive tool, and I'll send you each the URL for getting to this and a login. Save the login. There's no possibility of you changing your password. And can you probably cheat on running stuff in the interactive tool? Yeah. I mean, what does it do to grade this? It goes out and checks that the table exists. And that's about it. It doesn't do some extensive thing. There are not a lot of points involved in running this, but these are simple. The text that I want you to run is going to be on the screen so that you can just type it in, or if you're really lazy, cut and paste it. You won't learn as much, and it'll cost you down the road when you actually have to remember these things. The typing will teach you a lot, and you will make mistakes, and you will get back errors, and you'll have to go, why didn't that work when I typed it in? Oh, I left out that comma. That's annoying. And then you correct it and fix it. So it's good for you. And these are quick. There's a bunch to do each week of these. About 10. I think 1 week is 9, 1 week is 11. But they are short, and they shouldn't, as you saw, it doesn't take very long to run 5 lines of code and verify that you got a result that you're expecting. So This interactive tool is new. You may find errors in it. If so, yes, you need to tell me so that I can fix them. It's also running on a server that does not have a lot of monitoring. So I'm going to be flexible if there's something wrong. It could crash. You may find errors in it. It is brand new for this class specifically, but it gives you short little pieces to run. And that's kind of the intro to the tool and the first exercise. Again, the exercises in the little interactive tool are quick and easy, and these shouldn't be things that are taking you a lot of time. If you get stuck on one of them, okay, I expect to hear from you. Either email or give me an SMS message so that I know that you're having problems. Let's get together over Zoom. Let's figure it out and fix it. And that's kind of the first one, okay? 9 more to do this week. Well, in the next week or so, look at the schedule and the syllabus. And they're all worth, I think, 10 points. I don't think there's any exception to that. So with a whole slew of them, that's about a quarter of your grade is just do the little interactive pieces. And we'll move on to the next one.